This is also a time of change for my family.
The monarchy had survived scandals, silences, betrayals, and storms that would have broken any ordinary family. But this time, the danger did not come from the outside world. It came from inside the palace walls, from a decision King Charles had carried quietly for weeks. And when he finally said it aloud, Princess Anne did not argue. She did not move. She was simply speechless. Before we go deeper into what this really means for the royal family, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss a single update. Charles knew every person in that Windsor room had arrived expecting tension, but not a sentence that would change the balance of the family. Windsor was not just another royal home. It was one of the monarchy's most symbolic residences, a place where private family choices often carried public meaning. Anne sat opposite him, calm at first, her posture sharp, her expression unreadable. William stood near the table, careful and silent, already sensing that his father had not called them together for comfort. Camilla watched the king closely, waiting for reassurance, but his face gave her none. The closed door changed everything. Charles placed a sealed folder on the table and confirmed his final decision. Camilla would be removed from several private royal advisory privileges, and she would no longer influence future family succession discussions, household appointments, or legacy decisions tied to the next reign. Royal advisory privileges meant the quiet access and private influence given to a senior royal behind palace doors, especially when family roles, staff decisions, and future plans were being discussed. Succession meant the line of people expected to inherit the throne, and Charles understood that any private pressure near that line could become dangerous. Anne heard the words and went still. She had faced storms before, but this was different, because the king was not reacting in anger. He was drawing a boundary. Camilla's face changed as the meaning landed. She was not merely losing influence. She was being told, in front of Anne and William, that her place beside Charles did not give her a voice over the monarchy's future. That cut deeper than procedure. It felt like rejection wrapped in royal language. William looked at the sealed folder and understood the worst part. This had already been written, reviewed, and prepared before anyone entered the room. Charles had not invited them to debate. He had summoned them to witness the end of something. A senior aide stepped back and quietly closed the door, turning a family disagreement into a sealed royal moment. Anne did not shout. She did not challenge Camilla. She did not question Charles. Her silence frightened the room more than anger ever could, because Anne never lost her words unless the truth was unbearable. But to understand why Charles made such a devastating decision, the story has to move beyond the announcement and into the people whose futures were suddenly hanging from it. This was not simply about Camilla's position. It was about Charles's loyalty, Anne's duty, William's inheritance, and the future of a monarchy built on controlled appearances. In that room, every face carried a different wound. Charles looked exhausted. Camilla looked betrayed. William looked cautious. But Anne looked as though she had just witnessed the crown turn against itself. Charles carried the pain in his shoulders before he ever spoke again. The king had spent years defending Camilla from whispers, judgment, and the long shadow of history. Yet now he had become the one drawing the boundary around her. That mattered because his choice did not touch only one marriage. It touched the monarchy's survival, the family's unity, and the future reign waiting behind him. A future reign meant the period when William would one day become king, carrying not only the crown but the unresolved wounds left behind by those before him. Charles knew that if private influence looked stronger than public duty, the crown could begin to look weak from the inside. Anne studied her brother with the hard calm that had made courtiers fear her honesty. She could absorb scandal. She could survive public storms. She could stand through family grief without asking for pity. But instability near the throne was different. The throne meant the royal seat of authority, the symbol of who leads the monarchy and carries its duty. Anne understood that if Camilla's voice continued to shape household appointments, succession conversations, or legacy choices, then William's future might begin under a cloud of quiet resistance. She did not hate Camilla in that moment. She feared what unchecked influence could do when love and power became tangled. Camilla felt the words like a public wound, even behind a private door. She had endured years of cold looks, cruel headlines, and polite acceptance that never fully became warmth. Now she had heard Charles reduce her role in front of Anne and William, and the pain was sharper, because it came from the man who had once promised she would never stand alone. Her voice lowered, but it did not soften. "Was this decided before I walked in?" she asked. Charles looked at her, then at the sealed folder, and for one long second, he did not answer. William saw the pause, before anyone explained it. The prince knew silence could speak louder than a royal statement, which was an official message used to control what the public hears. Anne noticed it too, and her face tightened because that pause revealed the truth. This was not a discussion. It was confirmation. Camilla blinked slowly, as if she had finally understood that the battle had ended before she arrived. Charles finally said the decision had been necessary. He did not call it easy. He did not call it fair. He called it final. William looked toward Anne and realized her silence was not shock alone. It was recognition. Charles had chosen the crown over comfort, and once that choice was spoken, no one in the room could pretend the family was the same. Yet this decision did not appear from nowhere, because behind Charles's final words stood one private incident that changed everything. Every royal crisis has a moment that looks small when it happens, but becomes enormous in memory. For this family, it was not a televised speech, not a balcony appearance, not a public scandal. It was a private anniversary ceremony at Windsor, where one remark, one chair, and one refusal quietly pushed Charles toward the decision that would leave Anne speechless. Charles entered that ceremony, believing the day would honor the late queen, not reopen wounds the family had tried to bury. Windsor carried the weight of memory, and this anniversary was meant to protect that memory from conflict. The ceremony was private, meaning it happened behind closed doors, with only selected family, members and trusted staff present, away from cameras and public noise. That mattered, because private royal moments often reveal what public appearances hide. They show who feels secure, who feels overlooked, and who believes the future is already being shaped without them. Camilla noticed the seating before anyone spoke. Catherine had been placed beside William during a family legacy briefing, and the queen consort felt the message before it was explained. A legacy briefing meant a private discussion about how royal memory, duty, and future roles would be carried forward by the next generation. Camilla believed her place should have been recognized first, not because she wanted a chair alone, but because chairs in royal rooms can carry meaning, sharper than words. Catherine did not challenge her. William did not move. But the silence around that seating arrangement made Camilla feel judged before the ceremony had even begun. Anne watched the moment harden. She saw Camilla object, quietly at first, then with a sharper edge, arguing that the queen consort's place could not be treated as an afterthought during a gathering tied to Elizabeth's memory. Queen consort meant the wife of the reigning king, a role beside the monarch, but not equal to the monarch's ruling authority. Anne understood the title, but she also understood the danger. This was not just about respect. It touched succession, symbolism, and the next generation. If Catherine's place beside William could be challenged there, then the future line could be made to look negotiable. Charles tried to calm the room, but his voice carried strain. He told Camilla the arrangement was meant to honor continuity, not diminish her. Yet the queen consort heard the explanation as another reminder that the monarchy had accepted her without doubt, fully embracing her. She felt cornered by women the public had loved before her, by the late queen's shadow, by Catherine's quiet strength, and by Anne's unblinking judgment. Charles saw that pain, but he also saw something more dangerous. He saw private hurt turning into institutional pressure. Anne found him later in a corridor, standing alone, with the ceremony program folded tightly in his hand. She did not raise her voice. She did not need to. "This cannot happen again," she told him. Charles looked wounded, because his sister had said aloud what he had been avoiding. He knew that if personal insecurity began shaping family order, private influence could become public instability. That was the hidden trigger. That was the point of no return. Charles did not make his final decision in one sudden burst of anger. He carried it from that ceremony, through sleepless reflection, into the Windsor meeting, where Anne finally heard the words that froze her. And when the memory of that ceremony finally entered the room again, silence gave way to confrontation. Anne had spent a lifetime mastering restraint. She could stand through humiliation, grief, scandal, and ceremony, without letting the world see her break. But when Camilla challenged Charles's decision, in that closed room, something in Anne changed. It was not rage at first. It was colder than rage. It was the sound of duty finally refusing to stay polite. Camilla turned toward Charles with the hurt of someone who had already guessed the answer. "Is my future being decided by family pressure?" she asked. "Or by royal fairness?" The king did not flinch, but the question struck him hard, because it pulled his marriage into the same space as the crown. Royal fairness meant the idea that every senior figure should be judged by duty, service, and position, rather than old resentment or private emotion. Charles knew why the words mattered. If Camilla could frame the decision as punishment, then his final order would look cruel. If he framed it as protection, then the pain still remained. Charles kept his voice low, but the room felt the force behind it. He told Camilla the decision was final, not because he had stopped caring for her, but because the monarchy could not enter William's reign with unresolved private power struggles. The future reign meant the period when the prince would one day carry the crown, and Charles knew that any conflict left unresolved now would become William's inheritance later. That was why the moment mattered. This was not only about Camilla losing access. It was about whether the next chapter of the monarchy would begin with clarity or suspicion. Anne heard Camilla's next words, like a blade sliding across glass. The queen consort said some people in the family had never accepted her, no matter what she endured, no matter how long she stood beside Charles. Anne's eyes hardened, because she understood the accusation. It was aimed at her. It was aimed at every silence, every cold look, every moment where duty had mattered more than affection. William stepped in carefully, reminding them that no one in the room wanted public damage. The prince chose each word with caution, because one harsh phrase from him could be twisted into ambition. And William knew ambition was dangerous when a future king was speaking about his father's wife. Anne pushed her chair back. The sound cut through the room. She stood, not dramatically, not wildly, but with the kind of control that made everyone listen. "Acceptance does not mean unlimited authority," she told Camilla. The queen consort's expression hardened, yet her voice trembled when she asked whether loyalty meant anything in this family. Anne did not look away. Charles closed his hand against the table, as if holding back a deeper wound. Charles raised one hand, and the confrontation stopped. The king said the decision would stand. No appeal, no softening, no private reversal after the door opened. Anne remained still, shaken not by Camilla's anger, but by the finality in her brother's voice. William saw it too. Charles had not merely ended an argument, he had locked the future into place. But behind that finality was a deeper machinery of power, and Charles was not acting on emotion alone. Royal power rarely arrives with shouting. It arrives in folders, in signatures, in private counsel, in doors that open for some and close for others. Charles's decision about Camilla was not a sudden punishment. It was a controlled transfer of influence, shaped by fear, duty, and the brutal understanding that the next reign had to begin before the current one ended. Charles had faced the hardest part before anyone else entered the room. Earlier that day, the king sat alone with the final memorandum open before him, reading every line as if each sentence had been carved into his own life. A memorandum meant a formal written note, used to record decisions, advice, or instructions inside an institution. This one mattered, because it did not merely describe a change in duties. It created a boundary around Camilla's private reach and protected William's future authority from becoming tangled in family tension. Charles set down his pen once, then twice. The delay revealed the grief beneath the duty. The signature changed everything. Charles knew Camilla would keep dignity, ceremony, and public respect, but her private access to succession-adjacent decisions would be reduced. Succession-adjacent decisions meant choices close to the future of the throne, such as family roles, household influence, and legacy planning, even when they did not directly change the line of inheritance. The king understood why that line had to be guarded. If the queen consort appeared to shape the next reign from behind closed doors, William would inherit suspicion before he ever inherited the crown. William did not feel victory when he learned what had been signed. The prince felt the weight of protection, and protection, in that moment, looked painfully close to betrayal. His father had shielded his future, but he had done it by wounding the woman beside him. William knew that mattered, because a future king cannot begin his reign surrounded by private doubt. He also knew family pain does not disappear just because it serves the crown. Anne saw that conflict on his face and understood it without asking. She knew Charles had not chosen ease. He had chosen control before uncertainty could become chaos. Anne understood the deeper danger better than anyone in the room. Once influence is formally reduced, restoring it becomes almost impossible without making the monarch look weak. Formal reduction meant an official narrowing of someone's role, not a passing insult or temporary disagreement. That was why Camilla's loss carried force beyond the room. It would change who received papers, who entered certain conversations, and who shaped the silence before decisions were made. Charles heard the final confirmation from an aide before the night ended. Household staff would receive revised instructions by morning, and the palace would begin acting as though the new order had always been inevitable. Camilla's hurt had become procedure. William's future had become policy. Anne's shock had become proof that the decision was real. By sunrise, the decision had left the room, and the first signs of fallout began to spread through the palace like a crack under marble. The cruelest part of a royal decision is not always the moment it is spoken. Sometimes it is the morning after, when the palace continues moving. The clocks keep ticking, the staff keep bowing, and one person realizes the world around them has already adjusted. For Camilla, that morning was not loud. It was worse. It was quiet. Camilla felt the change before anyone explained it to her. The queen consort entered the private sitting room, expecting the same rhythm, the same papers, the same silent signs that her place beside Charles still carried hidden weight. A private briefing meant a closed-door update, given to senior royals, so they could understand plans, duties, and sensitive family matters before the public ever heard them. That mattered because access was never just about information. Access meant trust. Access meant influence. Access meant being close enough to shape what happened before decisions hardened into palace. Fact. Camilla stopped when she saw the red dispatch folder. It was not beside her chair anymore. It had been moved to Charles's desk. A dispatch folder meant an official folder used for important royal papers, messages, or decisions that required attention. For years, that kind of folder had quietly told her she was included in the private heartbeat of the king's world. Now its new position said what no courtier dared to say aloud. Certain household consultations would no longer pass through her. Legacy-related discussions would move through Charles and William only. The future had changed seats in the room. Camilla did not explode. She stood there, with anger pressed under sadness, because the palace had not insulted her openly. That almost made it worse. Courtiers lowered their voices around her, bowed with the same care, and stepped aside with the same manners. Yet the distance was impossible to miss. She understood the cruelty of procedure. No announcement was needed. No harsh statement had to be issued. Everyone who mattered would feel the new order through the papers they received, the rooms they entered, and the conversations that ended before they arrived. Charles watched her notice the missing folder, and shame crossed his face before he could hide it. The king looked away, because the rule he had signed now stood between them, like a wound dressed as administration. He had protected the monarchy, but he had made his wife feel removed inside her own life. Camilla saw him look away, and that small gesture hurt more than a speech. It told her he knew exactly what the change had done. Anne received the update later, and did not celebrate. She closed her eyes for one brief moment, feeling the heavy price of duty. Anne had wanted stability, but stability had arrived carrying grief. She understood why the decision mattered, because William's future had to be protected before private resentments could gather power around it. Still, she knew another truth as well. When a family solves a crisis through rules, someone always bleeds quietly. Camilla finally made her move. She asked to speak to Charles alone, refusing to let her future be reduced to a memo, a folder, or a rearranged room. That private request changed the temperature of the entire crisis, because the next conversation would have no aides, no witnesses, and no palace language to hide behind. When Charles and Camilla finally stood alone, the monarchy disappeared for a moment. There were no advisors, no ceremonial phrases, no polished explanations. There was only a husband who had made a king's decision, and a wife who felt that decision as a personal abandonment. For the first time, the crisis stopped sounding like politics and started sounding like heartbreak. Camilla entered the small private room, with anger still alive in her chest, but grief had already begun to weaken it. Charles stood near the signed file, not as a distant monarch, but as a man who knew he had wounded the person closest to him. A signed file meant a completed royal paper carrying formal approval, the kind of document that turns a private choice into palace action. That mattered because once his name was on it, the decision was no longer a feeling or a warning. It was a command the household could follow, and Camilla knew commands were harder to undo than words spoken in pain. Charles looked at her before she spoke, and the silence felt heavier than any argument they had already survived. Camilla asked the question that stripped away every title between them. "Do you still trust me?" she said. The king did not answer quickly, because a fast answer would have sounded rehearsed, and a slow one already sounded guilty. Trust mattered here, because her reduced role did not merely remove access. It suggested that her influence had become something the crown needed to manage. Camilla understood that cruel difference, and so did Charles. Charles finally told her he trusted her personally, but he could not allow any role around the future monarchy to become uncertain or contested. The future monarchy meant the next stage of royal leadership, especially the path leading toward William's reign and the family structure around it. He said the issue was not whether he loved her, but whether the crown could afford confusion near its next chapter. Camilla heard the words and felt the last of her fight begin to drain away. He was not asking her to understand. He was telling her he would not reverse it. Charles removed his glasses, set them beside the signed file, and spoke with a tired honesty that hurt more than anger. "I have chosen the crown's peace," he said, "even where it costs me my own." Camilla's face tightened, but her voice softened. She did not forgive him in that instant. She did not pretend the wound had closed. Yet she understood that open resistance would only prove the palace right. If she fought harder, she would become the very threat the decision had been designed to contain. Anne later stood with William in a separate private room, away from courtiers and polished phrases. The prince admitted he had not expected his father to go through with it. Anne listened, and for once, she did not correct him. She understood the shock because she had felt it too. Charles had not acted like a man chasing control. He had acted like a king accepting damage. Camilla stepped back from open resistance, not in surrender, but in bitter acceptance. Charles had kept the crown steady, yet the marriage beside it had changed shape. William knew the next reign had been protected. Anne knew the family had paid for that protection. Once Camilla stepped back from open resistance, the palace could contain the family, but it could not contain the world outside the gates. By the time the story reached the public, it no longer belonged only to Charles, Camilla, Anne, or William. It belonged to every headline, every broadcaster, every crowd outside the palace gates. The monarchy had tried to make a private adjustment. Britain saw something larger. It saw a king making a painful choice about the woman beside him, and the crown after him. Charles allowed the palace to release a controlled statement before speculation could swallow the family whole. The king knew the words had to sound calm, because panic from the palace would make the decision look harsher than it already was. Palace statement meant an official message approved by royal staff to explain or soften a sensitive matter for the public. This one spoke of continuity, dignity, and future planning, but that careful language only made people look harder. Continuity meant keeping the monarchy steady from one reign to the next. And that mattered because William's future authority was now being protected in plain sight, even if no one named the wound directly. Camilla read the statement with a stillness that was almost more painful than anger. The queen consort understood every polished phrase. Dignity meant she would not be openly embarrassed. Future planning meant her private influence had been narrowed. She had not been sent away, but she had been placed at a distance from the machinery that shaped tomorrow. That distinction mattered, because it allowed the palace to protect her public role, while making sure the next reign could not be clouded by private pressure. The front page landed like a verdict. A major morning newspaper carried a stark image of Camilla leaving Windsor beneath the private pressure. Headline: "The King chooses the future." The words were simple, but they cut through every official sentence. Outside Buckingham Palace, a small crowd gathered near the gates, some holding phones, others standing quietly, as broadcasters called the move a historic recalibration of royal influence. A broadcaster meant a television or radio journalist explaining the story to the public. And this framing mattered, because it turned a private family decision into a national symbol. Anne became part of that symbol almost instantly. Commentators described her speechless reaction as the moment that revealed the seriousness of Charles's choice. Anne did not give a private interview or break silence through a recorded conversation, but a documented palace account of the Windsor meeting placed her stunned stillness at the heart of life. The story that mattered, because the public understood something basic about her. If Anne had no words, then the decision had truly shaken the family. William remained calm in public, but his calm was read as confirmation. The prince did not smile too widely. He did not speak too quickly. He carried the stillness of a man who knew his future had been defended at someone else's cost. Charles had chosen order. Camilla had accepted distance. Anne had absorbed the shock. Hewith Ryeries, prode subwerfu. And when the noise finally settled, only one question remained inside the family. What had this decision truly cost them? In the end, Anne's silence became the clearest verdict of all. She had seen battles inside the royal family before. She had seen pride wound duty, love complicate power, and history punish hesitation. But Charles's decision about Camilla was different. It was not made to satisfy anger. It was made because the monarchy could no longer afford uncertainty at its center. Charles understood the meaning of what he had done before anyone thanked him or judged him for it. The king had chosen institutional survival over personal loyalty, and that choice would follow him long after the room emptied. Institutional survival meant protecting the monarchy as a working system, not just protecting the feelings of the people inside it. That mattered because the crown could survive sadness, distance, and private pain, but it could not survive confusion over who held influence when the next reign was approaching. Charles had not punished Camilla to prove strength. He had limited her power because the future needed clean lines. Anne saw that truth more clearly than anyone. Her speechlessness had not been weakness. It had been recognition. She knew her brother had finally done what duty demanded, even though the cost had landed directly inside his marriage. Anne had spent years watching the family mistake silence for peace, but this silence was different. It did not hide a problem. It revealed one. The princess understood that the decision had drawn a painful boundary between affection and authority, between a wife's place beside the monarch and the crown's need to move forward without private resistance. Camilla's future remained dignified, but it was no longer the same. The queen consort would still stand beside Charles in public, still carry ceremony, still receive respect, but her private power over future-shaping decisions had been permanently limited. Future-shaping decisions meant the choices that quietly guide the next royal chapter, from household roles to legacy planning and the confidence surrounding William's reign. That mattered, because influence behind closed doors can shape a monarchy before the public ever sees the result. Camilla had not been exiled, but she had been moved away from the levers that mattered most. William emerged protected, but not triumphant. The prince understood that his future had been defended through family pain rather than celebration. He had gained clarity, yet that clarity came with the sight of his father carrying grief, Camilla carrying distance, and Anne carrying the shock of duty finally spoken aloud. William knew the crown had moved closer to him in that moment, but it had not arrived shining. It had arrived heavy. Anne passed Charles later, after the decision had settled. She paused beside him, placed one hand briefly on his arm, and said only, "You knew the cost." Charles did not defend himself. He simply nodded, because the cost was visible everywhere. It was in Camilla's silence. It was in William's caution. It was in Anne's stunned restraint. This moment did not destroy the monarchy. It clarified it. The crown would move forward, with less private confusion, but every person involved would carry the emotional scar of how that clarity was won. The monarchy survived because Charles chose its future, but the family changed forever, because everyone in that room understood what he had sacrificed to do it. Thanks for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will see you in next one.